I found out my own brother had been stealing my life, and my parents helped him do it. No, I'm not exaggerating. If someone had told me a year ago that the people I trusted most would smile to my face while quietly destroying everything I'd built, I would have laughed. Family doesn't do that, right? Mine did. And the worst part? I didn't discover it because someone confessed. I found out completely by accident after opening a package that wasn't even addressed to me. Even now, saying those words out loud feels unreal. I'm 31, and I've always been the responsible sibling. My younger brother, Ryan, was the exact opposite. Funny, charming, the guy everyone loved. But somehow every disaster followed him. Forgot to pay rent. Mom covered it. Lost another job. Dad made a few calls. Drowned in credit card debt. He's just having a hard time. I never hated him for it. I figured every family has one person who needs more help than everyone else. Meanwhile, I worked non-stop. Extra shifts. No vacations. No expensive hobbies. For almost 8 years I saved every dollar until I finally bought my first house. It wasn't fancy, but every wall reminded me of the sacrifices it took to get there. My parents told everyone how proud they were. Ryan hugged me and said, "You earned this, brother." Back then, I believed every word. Now that memory makes me sick. About 6 months after I moved in, Ryan started visiting a lot more often. Sometimes he needed tools. Sometimes he was just nearby. Sometimes he'd bring Mom and Dad over for dinner. It actually felt like our family was getting closer. I had no idea they already had another reason for spending so much time in my house. And I was about to learn it in the worst way possible. At first, nothing seemed strange enough to worry about. Just little moments that felt off. Ryan somehow knew exactly how much my monthly mortgage payment was. He joked about repairs I'd been planning before I'd mentioned them to anyone. One evening Mom casually asked, "You still keep all your important documents in that desk upstairs?" I laughed. "Yeah, why?" "No reason," she smiled. "Just wondering." Looking back, I wish I'd asked more questions. Instead, I ignored every red flag. Then little things started disappearing. Nothing valuable. A spare house key. An old folder with paperwork. My mailbox key vanished for 2 days before magically reappearing on the kitchen counter. I blamed myself. I figured I was just stressed from work. Then one Friday I came home early because a meeting had been cancelled. Ryan's truck was parked 2 streets away. Not in my driveway. Not in front of my house. 2 streets away. That immediately felt weird. When I walked inside, nobody was there. Everything looked perfectly normal. Until I noticed the smell. Fresh coffee. I hadn't made any that morning. The mug was still warm in the sink. I checked every room. Nothing. No signs of anyone. I actually convinced myself I was losing it. The next morning my neighbor waved me over while I was mowing the lawn. "Your brother leaves pretty late sometimes." I froze. "What do you mean?" "He was here yesterday." "Thought you guys were working on something." I hadn't seen Ryan in almost a week. At least, that's what I thought. I forced a smile and changed the subject, but my stomach felt like it had dropped into my shoes. That night I couldn't sleep. Every little conversation from the last few months replayed in my head. Every strange question. Every missing item. Every unexpected visit. For the first time, I stopped asking myself if something was wrong. I started asking. What the hell was my family hiding from me? The next day, I did something I'd never imagined I'd have to do. I installed security cameras. Not because I thought my brother was robbing me. I just wanted peace of mind. I didn't tell anyone. Not Ryan. Not my parents. Not even my best friend. If I was being paranoid, I'd quietly delete the footage and move on with my life. 3 days later, while I was at work, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the app expecting to see a delivery driver. Instead, I saw Ryan. He walked straight up to my front door, and unlocked it with a key. My heart stopped. I knew exactly where my spare key was supposed to be. Inside my desk drawer. He didn't knock. He didn't call. He simply walked inside like he owned the place. Then, 20 minutes later, my parents arrived. They let themselves in too. I sat frozen in my office, staring at my phone while pretending to listen to a meeting. What the hell were they doing in my house? I watched for almost an hour. They walked from room to room. Opened cabinets. Looked through drawers. Even went upstairs into my office. No one looked nervous. No one acted like they were sneaking around. They behaved as if they had every right to be there. When they finally left, I raced home. Everything looked untouched. Nothing appeared stolen. Nothing was broken. If I hadn't seen the footage myself, I would have thought I was imagining it. That evening I called Ryan. "Hey, were you at my house today?" There was barely a second of silence. "No, why?" He lied so naturally it was terrifying. I checked the camera again. There he was. Clear as day. Smiling. Unlocking my front door. That's when I realized this wasn't some misunderstanding. My own family was secretly entering my house. And they were perfectly comfortable lying straight to my face. I decided not to confront them. Not yet. Because I had a feeling. I still hadn't uncovered the worst part. I spent the next week pretending everything was normal. Every time Ryan called, I answered like nothing had happened. Every Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt like a performance. They laughed. They smiled. They asked about work. Meanwhile, all I could think about was the footage sitting on my phone. Then fate handed me the missing piece. A package was delivered while I was at work. The driver accidentally left it at my next-door neighbor's house. When my neighbor brought it over that evening, he frowned. "Thought this was yours, but the name looked different. The address was mine. The last name was mine. But the first name wasn't. It was Ryan's." I stared at the label for a full minute. Why was my brother receiving mail at my address? Curiosity got the better of me. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from a bank. At first I thought it was junk mail. Then I saw the words. Home equity line of credit. My blood ran cold. The paperwork referenced my house. My address. My property. There were forms requesting additional documents and identity verification before final approval. One page listed Ryan as the applicant. I read it 3 times because my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Alone. Using my house. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. I immediately logged into my online banking. Nothing looked unusual. Then I checked my credit report. That's when I felt my stomach twist. There had been multiple hard credit inquiries over the past 2 months. I hadn't applied for a single loan. Someone had. And whoever it was had enough personal information to get surprisingly far. Birth date. Social security number. Employment details. Everything. Only a handful of people knew all of that. I didn't want to believe it. But there was only one conclusion left. This wasn't just Ryan. Someone had helped him. And deep down, I already knew exactly who that someone was. I spent the next week pretending everything was normal. Every time Ryan called, I answered like nothing had happened. Every Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt like a performance. They laughed. They smiled. They asked about work. Meanwhile, all I could think about was the footage sitting on my phone. Then fate handed me the missing piece. A package was delivered while I was at work. The driver accidentally left it at my next-door neighbor's house. When my neighbor brought it over that evening, he frowned. Thought this was yours, but the name looked different. The address was mine. The last name was mine. But the first name wasn't. It was Ryan's. I stared at the label for a full minute. Why was my brother receiving mail at my address? Curiosity got the better of me. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from a bank. At first I thought it was junk mail. Then I saw the words. Home equity line of credit. My blood ran cold. The paperwork referenced my house. My address. My property. There were forms requesting additional documents and identity verification before final approval. One page listed Ryan as the applicant. I read it 3 times because my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Alone. Using my house. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. I immediately logged into my online banking. Nothing looked unusual. Then I checked my credit report. That's when I felt my stomach twist. There had been multiple hard credit inquiries over the past 2 months. I hadn't applied for a single loan. Someone had. And whoever it was had enough personal information to get surprisingly far. Birth date. Social security number. Employment details. Everything. Only a handful of people knew all of that. I didn't want to believe it. But there was only one conclusion left. This wasn't just Ryan. Someone had helped him. And deep down, I already knew exactly who that someone was. The next morning, I drove straight to the bank with every document I owned. The woman at the fraud department listened quietly while I explained everything. Then she looked at her screen, and her expression changed. Sir, someone has been trying to verify ownership of your property for weeks. My heart nearly stopped. She couldn't tell me every detail because the application was still under investigation, but she confirmed enough. Someone had submitted copies of my tax records. Pay stubs. Utility bills. Even a copy of my driver's license. Some of the documents were real. Others had clearly been altered. Whoever did this had access to my personal files. The files I kept in the locked drawer upstairs. The same drawer Mom had casually asked about months earlier. I left the bank shaking. Instead of going home, I drove straight to my parents' house. Ryan's truck was already outside. Perfect. I walked in without knocking. Everyone looked up from the dinner table. Mom smiled. You're just in time to eat. I threw the bank paperwork onto the table. Nobody spoke. Ryan looked at the papers, then immediately looked away. What is this? I asked. Silence. I asked a simple question. Dad sighed first. It isn't what you think. That sentence lit a fire inside me. Then tell me what the hell it is. Ryan finally spoke. I was going to pay it back. I actually laughed. A short, angry laugh that didn't even sound like mine. You were going to pay back a loan you tried to take out using my house. Mom started crying. She reached for my hand. Honey, your brother was desperate. I pulled my hand away. Desperate? No. Desperate people ask for help. They don't steal from family. Then Dad said something I'll never forget. We thought you wouldn't mind if it stayed in the family. That was the exact moment something inside me broke. Because I realized they hadn't made one terrible mistake. They had all agreed to do it together. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The only sound in the room was Mom quietly crying. I looked at each of them, hoping someone would say this was all some twisted misunderstanding. Nobody did. Ryan finally stood up. I was drowning in debt. They were trying to help me. By committing fraud. I snapped. He rubbed his face. I wasn't going to let you lose the house. I just needed the money to get back on my feet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So your plan was to secretly borrow against my home and hope I never noticed? Dad raised his voice. You've always landed on your feet. Ryan hasn't. We thought you could handle it. That sentence hurt more than everything else. Not because of the money. Because it proved they'd already decided my sacrifices mattered less than his failures. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. Mom grabbed my arm. Please don't do this. We're family. I stepped back. No. Family doesn't steal identities. Family doesn't forge documents. Ryan's face turned red. You'd really send your own brother to prison? I looked him straight in the eyes. You made that choice the second you signed my name. I walked out before anyone could stop me. By the time I reached my truck, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the door. That night I filed a full identity theft report. I froze my credit. Changed every password. Replaced every lock on my house. The investigators moved surprisingly fast. The security footage. The loan paperwork. The forged documents. Everything pointed in the same direction. A week later, detectives called me with an update. There was enough evidence to move forward. But then they told me one more thing. Something I hadn't expected. Ryan hadn't been the one who submitted the application. The signature belonged to someone else. Someone whose handwriting matched perfectly. My mother. I honestly thought the detective had made a mistake. My mother? I asked. He slowly nodded and slid another document across the table. There it was. Her signature. Her handwriting. The same loops, the same crooked M she'd used on every birthday card she'd ever given me. I felt sick. The detective explained that Ryan had provided most of the information, but Mom had completed and signed several forms because she believed I would forgive the family once everything worked out. Dad had helped collect my financial records while visiting my house. It wasn't Ryan's scam. It was all of theirs. For days, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Mom left voice messages sobbing, begging me to come home. Dad kept saying, "Don't let lawyers destroy this family." Ryan sent long texts insisting he'd pay me back someday. None of them apologized for what they had done. They only apologized for getting caught. That realization made my decision easier. I hired an attorney. Within weeks, I had legal protection, new locks, frozen credit, and every financial account secured. The bank officially rejected the fraudulent loan application. My house was safe. But my family wasn't. Criminal charges moved forward, and the courtroom was the first place we'd all been together since that dinner. Ryan refused to look at me. Dad stared at the floor. Mom cried through almost the entire hearing. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement, I stood up. My voice shook, but not from fear. I didn't lose my family today, I said. I lost them the day they decided my trust was worth less than my brother's debt. You could have heard a pin drop. I walked out of that courtroom without looking back. For the first time in months. I finally felt like I could breathe. It's been almost a year since everything happened. People still ask if I regret pressing charges. My answer has never changed. No. What I regret is ignoring the warning signs because I thought family members were automatically trustworthy. They aren't. Trust isn't a birthright. It's something people earn, and once it's broken, sometimes it never comes back. Ryan eventually accepted a plea deal, and my parents were ordered to repay part of the investigation costs and complete probation-related requirements. None of them ever truly admitted what they did was wrong. They only kept saying they were trying to save the family. The irony is almost funny. Their actions destroyed the very thing they claimed to protect. As for me, I sold that house a few months later. Not because I had to. Because every room reminded me of lies. I moved to another city, started over, and built a life where nobody has a spare key except me. These days, life is quieter. Peaceful, even. Sometimes that's worth more than having a big family around the dinner table. If this story taught me anything, it's this. Never ignore your instincts just because the people hurting you share your last name. Sometimes the deepest betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you've trusted your entire life. So now I want to ask you. What would you have done if your own family had tried to steal your future? Would you have forgiven them? Or would you have done exactly what I did? Let me know in the comments because I'm genuinely curious where you stand. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more unbelievable Reddit-style stories every week, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Trust me. The next story is even crazier.